And can I share my screen? Do I have the ability to do that from over here?
You do have the ability to do that.
Okay.
And that's the perfect intro to this whole thing. Welcome, everybody. We're live. Well, live. We are actually live. We're broadcasting live.
I'm live.
It's a question. The three of us are, in fact, alive. So we're live in two senses. But I'm wondering if live in the sense that we're meaning it, it's kind of like the tree in the forest question. If a tree falls in the forest, no one hears it. Does it actually make a sound? It's like, if we're live on Facebook but nobody's watching, are we actually live?
We are broadcasting live.
That's the real question. We are broadcasting live. Today's episode of the Wunntee Weeklies on Wednesdays, this is episode number 13. Good thing we're not doing it on a Friday, or that would be extremely bad luck. Is brought to you by the non-political but also funny. This is my girlfriend got me these. They're Duck Dynasty slippers. They're slippers, first of all.
That's not so. Oh my gosh, Brett.
But it's a duck. It's a duck with the glasses and the beard, right? And it says Duck Dynasty on there. And there are two of them. They look exactly the same. They're pretty much amazing. We got them yesterday, and I like walking around. The head bobbles back and forth when you walk. Also, I wanted to point out, this is sort of a more generic sort of sponsor for today's episode, is steamers, as in like food steamers and sweet potatoes. I didn't know my whole life how amazing these things were. Literally, you take a couple sweet potatoes and you cut them up and you chunk them, throw it into a steamer, put some water in there and turn it on. 10 minutes later, you have the most amazing mashed sweet potatoes. And I've been snacking on this for like 3 days. Delicious. Put a little bit of butter in there. Nothing but sweet potato and butter. So I highly recommend, get yourself
just a dash of cinnamon on top.
A little bit of cinnamon. Yes. A little bit of cinnamon. And it's basically just Thanksgiving all year round. It's so easy. You don't have to do anything. The last thing that I'll say, the third sponsor, which is kind of feeding off of what we said last time, but it also is in the same vein. Amazon has finally gotten into releasing like pre-made meals. And unlike every other food service in the world, which can't seem to get meals under $10 a meal, like pre-made, Amazon's doing them for $7, like $6.50 a meal. And they're actually not that bad. So check them out if you're on, especially if you're on Amazon Fresh. I think that's why they can, because they're charging you whatever $20 a month, and because they're Amazon, so they're taking over the world, which I'm okay with. But anyway, those are our sponsors for today. I'm excited today. We're going to go through and just do some quick thoughts. I have a couple of things to share. I'm going to be very fast, and then we'll turn the time over to Ross, and then John is going to take us through some awesome tracking stuff for just keeping track of lead flow across multiple platforms. So if you have like a website and you've got some lead pages, or you've got some whatever the other system is, John's going to take us through the whole thing. He's got some plugins, some cool things that are going to keep track of where people are going across your multiple platforms, which I think is super important when it comes to tracking and knowing, you can't really plug holes if you don't know where the holes are. And so this is a good way of understanding that. So just real quick, I wanted to dive in and talk about something that kind of clicked for me. I think as a freelancer, I'm going to speak to the freelancers, people out there that are kind of doing their own thing, running solo shops. So this is like more like me and John, not quite to the level of what Ross has done with building a team and building out, having an assistant, things like that. It's very easy to get into ruts of not really wanting to continue doing the things that you thought you wanted to do, because there's a lot that goes into it. But a lot of times all you need is sort of like a mental reset. So for example, I spent a lot of time over the last 6 months preparing for this fight that I had last weekend. And I realized that as I was getting closer and closer to the fight, I was also hating the work that I was doing more and more. And the reason was I wanted to be in my set, like deep inside, I wanted to be putting more time towards training. And every minute that I had to work was time that I couldn't put towards training. And so there was that sort of the thing that was pulling me away. And now that the fight's done, now that I have the time to breathe and the space to breathe, I realized I found myself today actually excited to talk to my clients. Like the guy texted me, the guy that bugs me all the time, and I get so annoyed with him. He texted me today, and I was like, I'll call you right now. And I chatted with him, and it was a great conversation. So I think it can be very easy to blame your work for the feeling you have about your work, but just remember that sometimes other things in your life might be causing that. And if what you want in your life is to have a business and have a thriving freelance, have that thing actually working for you, sometimes you might have to cut other things out, or just figure out exactly how you can make the balance work. Because more influences your mindset than you think it does. So anyway, that's all I had to say. I want to flip over to Ross now. I'm done talking, and then we'll switch to John at the end, and we'll go there. So Ross, any thoughts? We haven't been around in a couple weeks.
It's been a while. I probably had thoughts that came and went by then, but the thought that happened came to light yesterday. And I think this freelancers, agency owners, anybody, dude, get a contract. Just there was a referral partner I have who brings me a lot of business, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, the guy that he was representing, that came to me, had issues, and all you got to do is that little piece of script on your Infusionsoft order form that doesn't let the order form go unless they click, I agree to terms and conditions. Do that. Just that one little thing, like, yeah, and that links over to there, and we're done. It was probably a $5,000 thing they were trying to dispute, which, a decent amount of money. It's like, yeah, I'm not looking to refund that. This is what my billing policies were. There you go. And anyway, if you don't have contracts, get them. I'm currently using Proposify and love them. They monitor.
What's the plugin? What's the thing you're using for that check? Like, is there some JavaScript code we can get from somebody? How do we find that?
Yeah, you can get it if you just search Infusionsoft terms and conditions order form. If you Google that, 5 or 6 people have it out there. I'm now using Spiffy for my order forms, and they have one that it's the same JavaScript everyone else uses too. And definitely got to get that.
Cool. Yeah, that's very good. I got back into using Upwork the other day. I like it because it gives me a place to track time. And the contracts are built into the process of actually agreeing. Like, you have to have a contract set beforehand. So there's like at least some kind of a contract that's set there. But yeah, I think that's brilliant. And that's not another thing that has bitten me in the tuchus more times than just one. So even if it's just something like, if you're on a retainer setup, you have to give me 30 days before you stop paying. Right. Yeah. Things like that. Because if you just say, oh yeah, if it's just the bro deal, and you say, oh yeah, you'll just pay me this much and we'll go, you're like, if they decide they don't want to pay you anymore, you're in a lurch.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
And a big one is changing your credit card is not notifying me that you want to end your subscription. That the bill is racking up for money unowed, not just, oh, well, you couldn't charge my card. That must be it. I'm like, no, we've got like months of.
Yeah, you owe me a lot of money, dude.
Yeah, not processed. So anyway, that's the only thought, because I'm anxious to hear what John's got too. So
I am too. Yeah. So
turn over the time.
Without further ado, make sure you get yourself a steamer, make yourself some sweet potatoes, buckle in, get spiffy, get some contracts going, and we're going to hear John take us through some awesome tracking stuff. John, it's all you.
All right, guys. All right, so this all came about trying to solve a problem, and the problem has just gotten worse, but I've already got the solution, so it's not a big of a problem. The problem is, we've got lead pages and ClickFunnels and all these third-party sites that use to track stuff. Or if you're doing native advertising, and so you're driving people to a blog post, and then you want them to click on something to opt in. If you want to track your effectiveness of your Facebook ads or your Google ads, you need to have that UTM data tracked somewhere, preferably in Infusionsoft if that's what you're using. But the problem is, once they get to your site probably isn't set up to maintain that UTM URLs. I mean, I'm not going to show you what that looks like. We all know what those look like. The question mark and all the parameters at the end. Infusionsoft uses their own set of those, and there's 5 standard ones that Google uses, and kind of everybody else uses the same ones. And so you've got source, you've got medium, you've got campaign, you've got term, and you've got content. And those are the 5 different things that are kind of built in. You can track anything else you want, as long as the system that's sending it knows to send it, and the system that's receiving it, your form or whatever, knows to listen for it. But those 5, I usually don't even need all 5 of those. And so what the problem I run into is when you click and they, like in one instance, there's a native page and they click on this blog post, ad takes them to a blog post, and then they click to a form on that same site, but it's on another page. The UTM data is gone. So even if you're using the hidden fields and Infusionsoft like you should to track that stuff, it doesn't get to grab that data. And so what I had done is In this case, we were using Stealth Seminar, and Stealth Seminar was not grabbing the data because it was leaving on my site and going to another site. The UTM data was not, it was just the link that we sent them to was where they were going. So what I'm going to show you today is a way to grab that data once they get on your form, the 5 or however much of the data you want to grab, how to do that with JavaScript and hidden fields, and then also how to manage so that when they come on your site and then they leave your site or they go to another page on your site, how to maintain that UTM data so that those URLs get appended to the link clicks. And so first thing I'm going to show is first off, Brett, how do I show my screen?
Upper left, it's the green icon with the little arrow. It should be.
All right, I'm going to share my.
Pointing this direction.
I gotcha. I know what you mean. Am I sharing my screen now?
Yep, I see myself too many times.
All right, yeah. So let me let's go over to. First off, I'm going to show you this URL here. growfunnel.com/URL-passing. It's a beautiful page. You can tell I spent a lot of time on this page. But there's 3 things in here that you're going to want, and I'm going to show you what those 3 things are. There, 2 of them are right here. So the first thing, here's an example of the template of the JavaScript that you need. And this is, like I said, this is highly technical. If anybody wants to just tune out on this and go away, feel free. But so here's the JavaScript, and this is the kind of the base template. And that is in this utm-autofill.rtf file here on the left side right here that you can get if you want, this exact file. And so what I've done is I've taken the working JavaScript. What this does is it basically takes these 2 variables and passes them along.
John, can you, I don't know if you can zoom. I don't know how to make that. Maybe select all, increase the font size or anything. Now we're talking.
There we go. And like I said, that file is right here at growfunnel.com/URL-passing. Obviously, I'm not trying to get anybody's opt-ins here. It's just not even an HTML page. It's just a directory page. And so what I've done here is, here's the working example right here. And what I've done is I've taken hidden fields, 5 hidden fields, and I'm messing this up a little bit, I think. I'm getting backwards here. So bear with me for a second. All right. These are, let me see where I've got the notes down here. Right. So if you look down at the very bottom of this thing, the red stuff is the form name input field, and the green stuff is the parameter from the URL field. All right. Green's URL, red is the input field. So I've got this version right here. This right here is the sort of the template you can break apart and see. So you've got the URL field, which is the parameter in the URL that you want to grab and put into your Infusionsoft form. And here is the name of that input name that you've given in Infusionsoft. Actually, I need to get rid of these spaces in here. Sorry. And so basically, once the person gets to your form and the URL is in the field, this stuff over here that's in the URLs will be dropped into the form fields that look like this. And it's pretty simple. And you just need this bit of code right here. And you can see this connects to 2 different sources. You've got this Ajax library here. And then you can go grab this get3.js file from the same directory I gave you. You can see it's right over here. And you can host it wherever you want. Don't host it on my stuff because I might change it. So given that, does that make sense to you 2, what we just talked about?
Yeah, so far so good.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other part now, so now we've got the form that's working, but how do you get, if you've got a landing page, how do you get people from if they come in on one page and they go to your landing page thing, whether it's lead pages or ClickFunnels or whatever, how do they get from one, how does that data carry across? So I've got this plugin called TMS URL cram. And you can get that right here. It's .zip there, and just upload that. And basically what that does is it takes the URL parameters, all of them, and passes them where you want them to go. And you can pick out which of your which domains you want. If the link goes to this domain or that domain, pass the URL fields, those URL parameters. If it doesn't go to one of those two, then it won't pass it. And so you know, if you're doing it internally, you'd want to make sure that that's included. Let me let's see if we can pull up a site that I've worked on in the past that I'm pretty sure has that on there. You can see it's an old site because it's got the 10x username still. All right, let's go to, do I have it in here? Let me just look at my plugins and see. It's not in this one. All right, one more. I know it's here. Should have had this pulled up already. Sorry, guys. This site's screaming today. There we go. TMS URL cramp. So here's what that looks like. Give it a second to pop up. And so you can see here's a list of domains we want to, this domain, and they go to any of these domains, and they have URL parameters, UTM parameters in the URL field. It will pass those along. And so you can see here's online meeting now, which is still seminar, and there's some other assets that they send traffic to that they want to track. And that's really about it. I probably went a little quick.
That was fast.
Fast.
So if I run a Facebook ad,
Yep.
and I'm sure to put my URL params on that, and I push them over to lead pages,
Right.
and lead pages strips them out, but they fill out a form there. How do I prevent that from happening with this?
Well, if they fill out a form on the lead pages stuff, like on that landing page you're on, you don't need any of this. Well, you don't need this part, the plugin. You do need this. And
wait, you just said this, and I don't see where your mouse went.
Sorry, you do need this.
Okay.
Don't need the plugin.
Right.
The plugin is basically if you're jumping from place to place, you need to be able to maintain those UTMs, and that helps you do that. This is what you need here. And you can start, I mean, if you know JavaScript, this base template's going to get you everything you need. You'll be able to figure out what that is.
Okay.
And then this script right here. Hey, guys, I got somebody at my door. Can somebody pick up for just a second? Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. The dogs aren't even barking. That's weird.
I think something that's interesting here that I'd love to have John go through, just to talk specifically, but I can talk in general terms about it, is what you lose, what you miss out on by not doing this. So
Yeah.
in which situations here, I'm going to mute him real quick because his thing's going to replay me. So I think it's important that you go through the different pieces that you understand. Okay, as you're moving from site to site, place to place, different tool to different tool, there are all these drop-off points in your tracking. And sometimes it can be hard to put the end from the beginning because we're talking about a much more holistic approach to business and tracking and marketing, especially when we're talking about systems with Infusionsoft. But if you take a step back from like the specific ad that you're running in Facebook or the specific web page that you're sending people to in lead pages or all these different things, because all those individual pieces have tracking for themselves, right? All the way through. You're going to know how many people, like what your conversion rate is from people who see your lead page to people that fill out the form, to people that, take those steps all the way through. But what happens is as you start to build systems and your system becomes more holistic, and you don't just have a Facebook ad that's driving to a web page that's driving to a webinar registration page, but you have a Facebook ad that's driving to a lead pages page, and the thank you page of the lead pages page takes you to an Infusionsoft upsell form. Then they're purchasing from there, and then maybe going to another page where they're going to opt in for a second thing because maybe you sell different products, or just basically the way that it's working out. The number one, you're going to have all those different pieces strung together, and in theory, you could just do the math yourself. But at the end of the day, when you're running your reporting, the way that you're going to optimize your business, and you're actually going to start to create scalable growth for your business, is going to be, you have to know the places where things are dropping off, where things are failing. The only way you're going to know that is if you got tracking from the top to the bottom, Because just like within, if you take the whole idea of all these different pieces and you just put it, you think about it in terms of like just an Infusionsoft campaign, maybe you got 5 steps in this Infusionsoft campaign, 5 goals you want to push them through. If you just didn't track one of them, if you like built your campaign and then built a legacy order form for one of the steps and they picked back up in the middle of the it wouldn't make any sense, because you wouldn't be able to interpret the data, because the data wouldn't make any sense because it would all be off. So I think the whole thing about tracking across platforms is this, it's that same idea, but on a larger scale. And as you grow and as you start using more systems, and the beauty of it is there are a lot of things that Lead Pages does really well, that and ClickFunnels do really well, that Infusionsoft doesn't do very well. And so it makes sense for you to be able to actually use those systems and those services, and even WordPress. But if you're not keeping track of everything all the way through, then you could be spending money into a funnel. Like, think about it in the physical way, spending money into a funnel that's just dripping out into nowhere. And it's just money that you're not going to get back. So I think that's an important thing to keep in mind as we're looking at some of the technical pieces. John, I think if you're back, if you can unmute yourself again, it'd be interesting for you to go through and just point out some of the pieces. If you think like in a real world situation where somebody's got a business set up and it's like, okay, I'm going to have a Facebook ad that leads to maybe an Infusionsoft landing page, but then it goes to a ClickFunnels thing or anything like that, and just point out some of the places where data can get lost because of specific things, and then point out where those different things will fit in to plug that hole. I think that'll be helpful. I mean, maybe not go into such specifics, but kind of just explain on a higher level why.
Give me one more second.
Yeah, okay.
Because there's something going on upstairs. I don't know what it is. Hold on.
Okay, that's fine. But I think that's kind of the idea. Ross, if you have any like experience that you want to share, maybe stuff you've done for yourself or for clients where some of that stuff has dropped off and the data is hard to use, I think if we can drive that point home, helpful.
No, you're right on it. And it's only getting worse because there's more and more tools, like we keep beating up on Lead Pages, but there's at least 4 or 5 really popular ways to make a lead page. And 9 times out of 10, the actual conversion will happen on your Infusionsoft, say, order form or shopping cart. But then there's other things that are happening. And the question is, where did I first find this person?
Yeah. Is that just my own audio?
Is that me?
Are you hearing that?
No.
There's gremlins.
Yes, it's gremlins. Okay. Let me mute you real quick, John. I'll mute myself real quick. Go ahead. Keep going, Ross. Sorry.
All right. Anyway, but where did you first get this person? And then where would they last before they converted? And being able to get those, it's not getting any easier. It really isn't. The guys over at Graphly have rolled out a new tool that I'm working with, but I really like what John's got going on here. It's free. So we got to check that out. But having something, anything at all, is your first step. But then as soon as you do, you'll start to figure out, oh my gosh, I'm losing my tracking over here. I'm losing it over here. So this could be a really great solution. Go ahead, John.
Agreed. All right, John, it's all you. But you have to unmute yourself because apparently I can't do it.
Did I mute it? Did you mute me?
I muted you, but
okay, I got
not
you.
muted.
Now I'm not muted. All right. Okay, so you want to go over like a real world situation kind of thing?
Yeah, just kind of talk to the places in a real world situation where there could be that data drop off, where you could run into problems, why the data drop off is a problem in a business, and then how this solves it. Just sort of, you don't have to like try and go into super ton of detail, but just kind of give an overview of that process.
Well, the site that I was just showing you the example on, what they did there, it was a, the lead magnet was basically driving to a webinar. The lead magnet was a quiz, and then the quiz answers drive you to a webinar at Stealth Seminar. And what they were finding was, we would get double opt-ins, people, if they typed in their email address differently. So there's also another bit of code that I didn't show you, but that's pretty simple stuff, is basically it passes, using the same UTM data, it autofills the fields. The webinar registration fields is slightly different than this, but it's kind of the same idea. And so they were going from, our website to Stealth Seminar, and then we would end up with 2 sets of all the people that opted in, and then they we couldn't track the two together. they should be the same. And so by bringing in those UTM parameters, dropping them into place, and those custom fields, dropping them onto the, they were not using a different email address. So that's one simple little thing. Then knowing which ad we ran, which ad we ran got people through the funnel the way we wanted them to go. So we could run more ads like that versus, we're doing all these ads and it's all kind of working pretty well. We don't really have a good picture. And without this, we didn't have a good picture of what was going on the other end. We knew we were, at an overall level, we were at a, conversion rate of this and a sales rate of this, but we couldn't track it back to which ad was doing what. And in some cases, all the ads kind of performed evenly. In some cases, there were some winners. In some cases, there were some losers, but we wanted to double down on the winners. But couldn't do that without without some sort of way of tracking across it. There are a few places where this doesn't work. Hopefully, like lead quizzes was one of the tools we used. Hopefully, lead quizzes finally lets people add JavaScript to their back end, because you can't do that now. And it was not a viable tool for as much as it cost. A ridiculously expensive quiz tool that broke our tracking, so we couldn't use it. Stealth Seminar actually helped out a lot with this kind of stuff and helped us get everything up and working in a way that worked well with with our site, their stuff, and Infusionsoft. And actually, I think the original template comes from the guys at Stealth Seminar, and so great support on that team. Fantastic.
Yeah, Stealth has great support. So I think the overall, just to drive the point home one more time, the overall benefit here that we're talking about is it's top to bottom tracking, but it's being able to track things at the end back to the ad so that you can use third-party systems in the middle. I think that's probably the key.
Yeah.
Being able to take advantage of the power that Stealth Seminar has, the power that Lead Pages has, like Ross was talking about, or any of the other Lead Pages is, because there's like 100 of the Lead Pages is. Whichever one of those systems you want to use. Whereas before, you would lose the ad tracking data because you would be sending them to another system that wasn't actually tracking that. Now you can track from the top to the bottom which ad they came from, so you can throw more information in there. And kind of what Ross was alluding to, and then John said it again, being able to track not only which ad they came from, but what they bought from. Because there's the lead ad, the ad that gets them into your system, but then there's whatever it is that they bought. So
right.
Whatever it is that caused them to actually make the purchasing decision. Because understanding the relationship between those two can help you to build a more advanced and a more holistic system. When I was working with Frank, and I think I'm allowed to say this now, I'm going to say it anyway, so whatever. What we did is we discovered, I think I've mentioned this a couple of times, but I think I'm going to go into a little more detail now. We noticed that we got most of our purchases people didn't. Okay, so let me see if I can phrase this right. We got most of our purchases, the money that we got from people was from people who were shown an ad for product A, didn't buy product A, shown an ad for product B, didn't buy product B, and were shown a different ad, a campaign, something or other, some kind of campaign thing for product A again, and then bought product A. So we realized, okay, what that can do to you is help you understand, okay, we're going to keep pushing money into this first ad, even though the ad itself isn't what's creating the revenue. We know that our system, after we drop somebody using this ad, they need to see all of those pieces. They see the first ad, then they see the second ad for a different product, and they come back and they see a different approach for the first product. That's what they end up buying. So that's what we found in our system. We had a holistic system in Infusionsoft that was helping to drive them through. But if you have a good understanding of the fact that maybe you bring them in through an Infusionsoft form off of Facebook, pump them through a campaign, send them to a webinar, they come back from the webinar, or they don't go to the webinar or whatever, then you send them to a lead page of something or other. That's what actually gets them to buy. Understanding all that information is how you scale your business, because then it's just a numbers game. Then it's how much money can you put in to keep getting the same money.
Right. And it goes. This comes. The old saying. Half my marketing's working, half isn't. I just don't know which.
Okay.
This is what that helps to fix. It's that
you
simple.
know what's working exactly.
Yeah. And so, that's it. So I've got it on there. Anybody's able to go grab that template file, that utm-autofill.rtf file, and see I've got a template, I've got a working JavaScript example, and a working Infusionsoft form. We didn't really show that, but I've got the working Infusionsoft form, so you can see what it takes to modify your form to make it work.
Perfect.
It's
Now,
all pretty easy stuff.
For people who see this, I can see there's two people there's two types of small business owner in the world today. The first is the type that says, awesome, I'm going to go do that. They go do it. They set it up. They go on their merry way. The second is, awesome, I'm never going to do that. Right? I need someone else to do it for me, or I don't want to think about it, or that sounds good, but it sounds like a lot of work that I don't want to go do. What is the best thing for them to do? Are there people that that do this as part of their system? Do you do this, John? Is this something people could come to you and pay you to do? Do you know people that actually set all that kind of stuff up? Like what do you think is probably the best way for them?
If you have somebody, if you're already working with somebody who knows a little bit, just the basic JavaScript and web stuff, they can put this together with the stuff I've provided. I don't want to be the go-to guy for doing these one-off things. It's just not how I operate my business. If somebody wants to work with me and they want this kind of stuff and other things, give me a shout. But yeah, if they could take the files that I've given, the plugins in there, I paid for it and giving it away for free now. And the guy's name, John Pantoja, he's the guy that wrote the plugin. He said, if you mention my name, you also have to mention that I give zero support for this plugin because I've already been paid for it and I've already gone through the support on it. So don't bug the guy unless you have work for him, and he's pretty busy anyway.
Smart.
And that was that was the guy that I got from Ross, and Ross was probably like, no, don't bug the guy. I want him to be available for me.
Sounds awesome. Yep.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He came through with this really easily and made it work. And so it's all in there. If you have somebody that knows just the basics of Infusionsoft, the web stuff, they can put this together.
Awesome. Well, I think that although we maybe not contacting any of us directly to build that kind of thing, I would be interested with you, John, sitting down and maybe coming up with a training that we could give to a VA.
Sure.
And just take a cut of it off the top.
Yeah.
Be sort of a resource to redirect people to the VA and have them do it. And just take.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
But let's you and I chat about it. Maybe we can use some of Ross's people since he's already got them.
There we go.
Awesome, guys. Well, any parting thoughts? Any final thoughts?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, awesome. My mind's in politics right now, so I don't want to talk about that.
Keep going.
That's kind of why I just jumped in quickly and was like, let's just zoom. Let's just
yeah, right.
It. Awesome. Okay, cool, guys. Well, thanks everybody for joining. We will be back again next week. I actually got a request to talk about that system that I referred to that we were working with, that I built with Frank. I got a request to show kind of how we did that. So I think next week I will take the bulk of the time and go through how that is used. It's a totally inside Infusionsoft, but it's a way to cycle people through different campaigns and basically come up with the information of not only where they came from, but where they purchased from, and then make sure that they're seeing all of your offerings before you stop sending stuff to them. So basically it can create like a 2-year-long campaign out of enough content for about a month's worth of campaign. So it's a great way to start cycling people through. So we'll talk about that next week. We'll see you back here next week, same time, same place. For now, we're out. Peace.
See you guys.